to another Fireside Chat, where we have the joy and the privilege of meeting with people from Woodcrest's past and present to hear their story and their passion for the ministry that God is doing here. With me today is Adam Fox,
Yay.
longtime staff member, face of Woodcrest in our program for many years. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Yeah. So you're no longer here in an official capacity because you stepped down from your role of program director in September. Yes. But your legacy will live on. So let's talk a little bit about that legacy. Share when you first got connected to Woodcrest and maybe the condensed version of that journey.
Well, let me start with this. This is something that me and Micah Martin have talked about, and the fact that our legacy doesn't matter here. Like we do want kids to remember us and all that, but there's like the generation before us, we know the names, but the people after us don't know their names. I mean, Phil Horning was like my idol. He was amazing, and like Annie and Ben and all these people that made Woodcrest what it is. And I'm okay with not having a legacy. Like that's because God was using people to carry the torch through all the years. Like Elvin Martin actually
said the good Ecclesiastes mindset.
I don't matter, and that's okay. Yep. And I'm happy about that. So I started here in 2014 as a overnight counselor because my older sister Alicia, shout out to her, she was like, hey, you should do this. And I had a gap year between college and high school. I didn't know what I was going to do with my summer, so I just sent it. And it is a little surprising because I came here as a camper for overnight camp 1 year when I was like 10, and I hated it because I was terrified of the dark. And it wasn't the counselor's fault. He was a great counselor. I just had issues with the dark, and I never came back as a camper. So here I was working at camp, and then ended up being full time. So that was interesting. Was an overnight counselor 2014 and 2015, and then I was on support staff in 2016, and that was the first year we did the RISE staffing training program. So I led that. I worked with the program director, Will Warner, to start that program that year. And then 2017 and on, I joined staff full-time till 2024. So I was 8 years as the program director and 3 years as summer staff.
Okay. So I love to hear the story, but relive those moments where Cliff talked to you about coming on as what was your title?
Summer camp specialist.
Summer camp specialist.
That was my title the first year.
And that wasn't full time, was it? It was.
It was full time.
Okay.
But I was still in college full time. So okay. I worked 1 day a week starting in February till camp started.
Okay.
And it was way more than I could handle for sure. But he was like, you should consider this job. It became open because Annie was leaving, and I pretty much was like, here's the reasons why I'm not able to do this. I'm not qualified to work with camper issues and not qualified to handle parent complaints, and I'm still in college and all these reasons. And he's like, don't worry about it. We have Will as a program director still here, and he'll help you out on those hard things. I just want you to be here and make it happen. So I didn't even interview for the job, but I was there as an intern, so like they knew me really well, and that's how it started.
Excellent. So in those years, obviously, Woodcrest has grown since that time.
Yes.
So what are some of the exciting things that you have seen happen during your season at Woodcrest?
Oh man, where do we start? So when I started as summer camp specialist, so running the summer camp program, my kind of like vision for how long I wanted to be there was to see kind of what I called 2 generations of summer staff. So like a group of staff come up and they leave as they progress in their life, and then another group of staff comes up and leaves. And that didn't really happen like I thought it was going to, because a really awesome group of summer staff came up and they just stayed. And like slowly people left and moved on and people came, but like the way that the culture, there was something about the group of staff, shout out Braden, who they came and they really made camp happen, and like they bought in with the culture and like making the culture here healthy and growing. And it was really cool. Like, I mean, there's still a bunch of those people on staff even today. So Yeah, I think what I was passionate about was seeing camp as a mode for discipleship. It's really just a vehicle. Camp is just a vehicle to reach people. So like, I'm not going to walk down the street of Ephrata and talk to an 8-year-old and be like, hey, 8-year-old, can I disciple you? It just doesn't happen. But at camp, you get the kids in an environment where you do have an opportunity. So it's a tool to get time with kids, and like their parents are paying them to be there, and their parents are saying, hey, we know you're a Christian camp. Go tell them about Jesus. We're okay with this, because they're very aware that it's a Christian camp. So the avenue of camp is just a beautiful way to reach kids. But I think there's a misconception about camp from a lot of people that they think it's for the campers. And I would say that is not the case. A camper is for the staff. And the campers are the reason that staff is there, and they're the reason the ministry is there. But the staff is the place where the discipleship really happens, because we get a group of 50, 60 young people for 10 weeks, and we get to pour into them, and we're training them. We are giving them healthy rhythms, spiritual rhythms, to like devotions in the morning, worship on a weekly basis, worship on a daily basis. And they're going to put it into practice right away. So they're learning this stuff and they're going and doing it, and then there's a feedback loop. So we correct them, and then they grow and they learn the stresses of camp. It's a good environment for stress because they're pushed and they're bent, but they're not broken. At least that's the goal. And yeah, it's just a beautiful thing. That's why I love camp, is because the staff, they grow so much, and being a place where we can make the kingdom of God become real and manifest on our mountain, and people come in and we make it happen, and the kids come and they get to experience the blessing of what it means to be in the kingdom of God for a week. And I think that's a beautiful thing. That's why I love camp.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So camp is for the staff, not the campers, although don't tell the campers that. Yeah. Okay, I have no idea what your question was.
That was not the question at all. It was a great
I'm a politician.
answer.
I answer whatever I want to answer. I don't care what the question is. I just say what I want to say.
We can just show that clip to all of our donors, because that just explains why we exist and why we do what we do. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Campers allow us the means by which the staff are able to put into practice what they learn, and that's so true. And
the kids hear the gospel, and they are discipled, and the seeds are planted, and they go back to their local church and hopefully have a more renewed understanding of Jesus and all that stuff. But
and camp is still the number one place outside the home where young people come to know Jesus.
That's amazing.
That's a statistic that it's still there. But the question I actually asked you was, over your years, what changes have you seen in Woodcrest that have encouraged you, or that you're like, that was an exciting change, whether you were a part of it or not? Or
well, shout out Cliff for hiring me. Thank you for doing that.
His best decision ever.
Right. The amount of kids. So we were talking before going live, we were talking about how we've grown. I think it's 60% from when I started as a staff member to last year. That's a lot of kids that we take more a year. Yep. So that's really cool. The programs themselves, I feel like the summer is full. Like, we can't get any more kids in our summer, basically, unless we go off-site or like outbound, or we go off-season, like winter retreats. So the growth itself has been really cool, and it's happened through staff that are invested. So like I was telling Bill already, but like in 2019, Lydia came up to me. She was the day camp director. She's like, "Hey, I think we can get more kids in if we make the schedule, tweak the schedule." So like people came to me with ideas, and then we're like, "Okay, let's give it a go. Let's see what we can do." And through that, things have grown. Like Trekkers has grown 3 times the size of what it was. Overnight camp, most of the camps are full. When I started, like there was weeks when, as a staff member, when I had 5 kids, 4 kids even a week, and that's just the way it was. So that's cool. Rise staff and training was something that we started that I love, and it's really a cool way to disciple 15 and 16-year-olds. But some of the things that Bill brought, which I think were beneficial and wonderful, was just experience of what camps can look like outside of our program, and like ways that we can be more structured. For example, having a curfew at night was a good call that I resisted, but it was the right decision for staff on Sunday nights. And staff need to sleep. Let's do that. So bringing some structure, and that was beneficial. But things have changed, but they've also really stayed the same. There's some beautiful things about Woodcrest, like Forest Follies, and the way that we still do and yeah, they're amazing. And Fireside. I'm trying to think of any specific good things to add. I think like mostly just the logistics of the way we do things. Like every year in the off season, Bill's like, "Hey, let's focus on this and make this better. Let's focus on this and make this better." And that was great. It was great.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey. It's been amazing. I don't think I could have survived without you. It's definitely when
Likewise.
I think it was within my first couple of months. You said, just to let you know, I'm going to be here for probably another 2 or 3 years, and then we're moving on. So I appreciated the honesty and transparency up front. And you did, yeah, you stayed actually a little bit longer than that. And it's been awesome. And so there was the sadness of you finally announcing that you're leaving. But you have also just left behind a plan that those after you can take over. So let's think through some of those moments. Camp is full of highs and lows. Things where you're just like, oh, this is where God showed up in an amazing way, and just, you step aside and God steps in and does amazing things. And then there are times where like, oh, this was, obviously I don't want to say maybe your worst experience, but those moments.
I've had bad experiences.
Yeah. So let's focus on the positive first.
Okay.
In your year's experience, what are some of the like moments where you just like, that was a God thing, and it just was a phenomenal turnout, a response, or whatever.
Yeah. Where to start? I remember when I was a staff member, I was an overnight counselor, and it was teen week, and I had a group of 9 kids, and they were all taller than me except one. So that was like a little humbling. But I remember the first day we had Bible time, and I just realized these kids, they don't know the Bible at all. Like they don't know a single thing. So I put aside Bible curriculum. I just started from the beginning of the Bible to the end, just kind of like overviewing the whole thing. And that week was just like a really cool week of just like, here are the basics of Jesus. And that's the thing about camp too. You get all kinds of kids.
You do.
Some kids know the Bible really well. Some kids, there's whole groups where they don't. That was a fun time. Also, as a counselor, there was a time when there was some kind of spiritual interaction that was like eye-opening to a kid. I don't remember what it was, but I remember just talking about it, walking on the way back at night to the cabin, and there was something in the kid's eyes that just like clicked. Like you actually could physically see like a weight lifted off his shoulders, and like, I don't know how to describe that other than like it was real, like it happened. And that was a really cool moment because you could see the Spirit like real time, like lifting a burden off a kid. And it's just cool. There's times at Fireside where I've felt the Holy Spirit in a really tangible way. I think anytime on Thursdays when you hear the kids share about how God changed their week, I wish that everyone could go to those and see that, because I mean sometimes kids are like, yeah, I had fun or whatever, but other times kids share really hard things and really real ways that God grew them. At the end of the summer, the same with the staff too. Like, at the beginning of the summer, I put makeup on because I really care what people think, but now I'm at the end of the summer, God has shown me that I can be comfortable with who I am. Like stuff like that, just really practical ways that people have changed. Like God has used camp to change people. Or even like I didn't have any friends, and by the end of the summer, I have people that I really can trust and like know me. Another cool moment is when staff, within the realm of what they are expected to do, they don't like go outside of what they're allowed to do, but when they have creativity. So there was one time for a team week where the overnight guys we took all the guys and we went down to the pond, retention, shallow basin of water. And we just had a time where we prayed over kids. We kind of set the tone, and then we let them split up. And if you wanted to pray, you just raise your hand, and we'd go over. And we had all of us. And I was a director at the time. They invited me to join, and there was like just 5 of us. We were just going around praying for kids individually, and like I was there with the kid who accepted Christ, and it was like a really cool moment. So those are some definitely spiritual highlights. Anytime staff members take initiative on themselves to be like, no, I want to go do this. That's a really cool time. It's really special. Yeah, I would say even the mundane stuff though, like when a camper asks a question. I remember, shout out Caroline Baum, you were really good at this. camper asks you a question, you'd be like, I don't know the answer. But at the end of the day camp day, she'd go home, she'd research it, and she'd come back the next day with an answer. Like the humility there and the desire to like bring truth to a kid's life is just really cool. So when staff are intentional like that, that's a really powerful thing.
The phrase I always use is that quality time comes amidst quantity time. And when you're just immersed in that camp culture, you have kids overnight camp that are 24 hours a day for 5 days a week. You have opportunities to make the mundane become something that God uses beyond what you could ever imagine. And
something about extraordinary and the ordinary, something like,
something like that, getting
that.
Kids out of the ordinary to experience the extraordinary, all those little catchphrases that I use,
Because they're real. That's why you use them. Like
right.
we don't, like, you're not trying to be disingenuous.
Right.
Like you actually have seen this. We've seen this happen, and we want people to know what happens.
So shout out to A.W. Tozer, one of my favorite dead guys. He called it the sacrament of living. When you take the daily routines of life, like the choice activities, having a meal with a camper, roasting a hot dog over a campfire, those daily activities become moments where God just shows up, and you have a conversation that starts off as so simple and becomes yet an opportunity for you to lead them into the knowledge of who Christ is and what He's done for them.
Camp is not flashy; it's sweaty. And it's sometimes
messy.
Yeah, it's messy, and like God uses it. So I think it's a really cool thing.
And part of that mess isn't always great. They're not all wonderful stories. There are always those heartbreaks. One or two stories that just, you look back and like, that was a moment that it was frustrating, it was heartbreaking, it was, God still showed up, but maybe not in the way that we always wanted to do.
Yeah. The really hard thing about one of the hardest things of being a program director is you gotta fill the staff slots. Like you have holes and you gotta fill them. And we struggled with that for the first couple of years. And you want to fill them with people that are passionate, and that happens most of the time. But my very first year, we had one overnight guy counselor. You need at least 4, and amazing how we'd get 3. Most weeks we get 3 from former staff giving a week or day camp staff member going to overnight. It was wild how it happened, but that was really difficult. That same year, I don't know if it was the stress of upcoming. It probably was the stress of this upcoming challenge of becoming a program director. But I developed stomach issues that were very horrible. So basically, I was throwing up every day for a month or 2 before camp. And when camp started, something switched, and I think it was the grace of God. I wasn't throwing up anymore, but it was still a lot of stomach pain. And my weight went down. If you see pictures, I was very thin, and it was a challenge. I pushed myself. I pushed myself too hard, for sure. I mean, I felt like I had to get camp going, but there was a week when I had to fill in for the overnight director because he had to be an overnight counselor to fill in for that spot. And we kind of tag teamed some of those roles. And I had Rise as well that I was leading. And also I was doing my summer director job, which meant overseeing the support staff as well. So I called it the week of death, and then I realized, no, I need to call this the week of destiny because I gotta have a good attitude. And it wasn't good. It wasn't how it should have been done, but I learned, I grew, and we made changes, and that was a challenge. That was definitely some challenges, especially in the early years. Can't forget COVID year. That was just, we fought tooth and nail to make camp happen.
We did.
And it did. And the staff that year was amazing. They wanted to be here, and they gave up a lot to be here. And 2 weeks into camp, the government said we can do overnight camp. That was really awesome. And it was just a really hard year. And Micah Martin was the day camp director that summer. Every day he was updating the day camp schedule because we'd have changes come in from the government that we're allowed to do now, and boy, it was just a mess. But that was your first year.
That was my first year.
That was Bill's I'm not going to change anything the first year. COVID comes. I have to change everything, guys. So we worked together though. We made it happen.
I don't think I would have survived. I think my transition from moving in from Cliff's administration to mine would have looked totally different if it wasn't for COVID.
Yeah.
Because it created a moment where, hey, we want to do this. Let's get together and figure out how to do it. And so there was an intensity that was fostered there, and just
it was very intense.
We need to be together. We can't be divided. So yeah.
The worst part of being, the worst part of being a program director is when you have summer staff that after they leave camp, maybe a year or two after, they turn away from the Lord, or at least from making lifestyles that honor the Lord. That's happened a couple times, and that is the most brutal thing because I love my staff, right? They're like my family. They're like my part of a team. Family might be, I don't want to overuse that word, but I love them. Yeah. And when you walk with someone, and even like outside of camp, you're meeting with them, and they turn from the Lord, it's just brutal. And you get, as a program director, you get influence, and when you lose the ability to have influence, it sucks because you can't do anything anymore other than pray. Right. And that's just a really, really brutal thing to see happen.
Right. I've learned over the years with staff like that, their story's not done, their chapter's not finished, and you grieve for a season, you pray, you wait for that open door. Sometimes you get it, sometimes God doesn't give you the open door, maybe someone else gets it. But yeah, I've seen staff who were just amazing, and then for some reason something in their life causes them to walk away, and sometimes they come back, and that's great, and sometimes you have to wait for the story to end. But what I love, and as you share those frustrating moments, God never wastes suffering. God always uses that to strengthen us, to refine us, to purify us, and to work in us. And so COVID is an example of that. God didn't waste COVID. I don't think we would have grown quite as we have if it wasn't for that season, and our willingness to do what needed to be done.
And I think what camp has taught me as a leader at camp is God doesn't need me.
Right.
And that is so good because I can't eloquently convince people to work at camp. There's no words I can say that'll get them there. I can do my best, but ultimately it's the Holy Spirit. So I have these 65 roles to fill, and I can't make them be filled. I have to rely on the Lord. That's incredibly difficult. And even with someone leaving the faith afterwards, I can't make them follow Jesus. That's something I have to give up and turn over. Yeah. It's really difficult. And God doesn't need me to do what he wants to do. He wants to use me, he wants to work with me, but he doesn't need me, and that's really humbling.
Camp ministry is a lot like farming. We have our roles, we have to be diligent in our responsibilities, but all the fruit, we can't make it rain, we can't make a seed grow, we can't provide the right environment, but we can weed, we can do what we need to do, and camp's a lot like that. So it is humbling, it's also exciting because it takes a lot of pressure off us.
That's true. You can go have fun. It's camp, have fun.
Yeah, have fun. Yeah. But all times, all good things eventually have to come to an end, and so your season at Woodcrest ended in September. Explain to our listeners, what are you doing next?
God's not done with you. No. We are transitioning to full-time overseas cross-cultural ministry in Nigeria. We, as in me and my wife and my 2 kids, Zion and Kai. And we'll actually, I want to look at my watch. In a month and a half, we are moving. So March 30th is our launch date. Okay. And the past 6 months has been, I've been doing trainings and prep work. Right now we're getting our house slowly packed away. And so we will be joining the team at SIM in Nigeria. And they're working with a local ministry called City Ministries. It's run by the local Nigerian church. And they do, that's the team that I'll be joining. They do all kinds of stuff, mainly orphan and vulnerable children care, so getting kids off the streets and being discipled and being given a home. And then they do outreaches to the local unreached people groups, so they'll be the Fulani and Hausa tribes. And they also do healthcare, so they have an intake center where anyone can come, receive treatment. They have, they have for widows, they have for the blind community, they have for the leper community, and kids can come there. And it's a health clinic, so Tasha, my wife, is a nurse, and she'll be working with them on that side of things. I will be working with the King's Kids, which is the orphan and vulnerable kids, and they want me to help with their camp, so can't get away from camp ministry, which I love. But I'll be at least starting with the camp ministry, and my vision would be to to use camp and other avenues as a way to disciple the young men coming up in that program who were initially on the streets but now have received the Lord, and create a program to send them into missions so that those that were once the unloved or the uncared for are now being the ones sent into the mission field, local Nigerians to Nigeria, and developing that program. It does happen already. They've had kids graduate from their program and go out, but my heart, my vision would be to work with the team to develop that so that we have a pipeline, sending out missionaries, making it happen. That's what I'd love to see happen. So that's where the next phase of life is for us.
Excellent. Immediate prayer ways, how people are watching this now, how can we be praying for you as you get ready for that launch date in about a month? The whole moving day with 2 kids is like not exciting to me. Getting kids through the plans and everything, moving 12 bins. But yeah, pray for that season of like uprooting and replanting, that we can have patience and grace for ourselves and each other, and pray for our language learning ability, that we will be persistent and diligent to make that happen. Pray for pray for Nigeria. Where we're going is a safe location, but it's one of the most persecuted nations. As persecuted Christians leave the north and come to the central area where we are, there's a lot of trauma, a lot of hurt, a lot of killings, and there's the Lord is doing amazing things in Nigeria, but it's a country where there's a lot of heartbreak as well. So obviously those years you have campers and staff and supporters and parents that have come to appreciate your ministry. Is there a way that you can direct them so they want to keep knowing what you're doing?
Yes.
How they can stay informed
Sure.
on what your ministry is?
Sure. We have a newsletter that we send out every 2 months. So if you want to be added to that newsletter, you can email me, adam.fox@sim.org. adam.fox@sim.org.
We'll put that on the comments.
Put it in the show notes.
So yeah.
And I'll put you on our list, and that would be the easiest way. You can also just look up SIM and see what they're doing.
SIM stands for those of us outside the acronym community.
It used to be Sudan Interior Mission because they started in the Sudan in the 1880s, but now it's just a global organization, so it's just SIM.
Okay.
Really confusing, but
yeah.
It's where they're at. Yeah.
Good. Thank you for investing in the kingdom here at Woodcrest. You're right. I mean, the humbling thing about camp ministry is within 2 or 3 years, you're not remembered. But it's not about us. It's about Christ being in the center, and just the joy of being used for the season that we're used, and allowing God to take the gifts, the talents He's given us, use them there, and it has been. You can look back over those years and feel. Give thanks to God. I want to keep you humble. I don't want to give you pride. But God has used you in an amazing way over those years for that season. And so for that, on behalf of the board of directors and everybody, thank you for doing that.
I would never have a cooler job than being a camp director. Come on,
right.
That's awesome. I mean, I get to focus on the 2 best times of the year, Christmas and summer. So
right.
What more could you want? I will always cherish the memories here, and pretty much all my best friends are from here. I saw my wife here, I got married here. So camp is it's pretty much my second home, probably always will be, and I'm excited for that.
Which is great, because everyone always wants to support their second home and make sure that it's staying well, so keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Always. I have so much money right now, so yeah.
Exactly. So thank you, not only for that, thank you for sitting down here. There's no way we can ever truly acknowledge what you gave in those years, but hopefully this is one more way for us to thank you for that, and to provide a way for those that have been touched by your ministry to keep informed of what you're doing, invest in your ministry in the years to come until you come back and take over the executive director role.
Sure.
So thank you for sitting down and watching another episode of our Fireside Chats. We'll keep those going with people that have impacted Woodcrest, so you can continue to be encouraged and inspired by what God is doing here. Thank you.